September 1984. In the quiet town of Millbrook, Vermont, 23 children walked out of their elementary school in the middle of the day. Their eyes were glazed, and they whispered that the light was calling them home. They marched toward the woods in a perfect line. By sunset, 11 had been found wandering, confused. 12 were never seen again. The official explanation said it was mass hysteria, but the truth was far darker than anyone thought, and investigators had found evidence that proved it wasn't an accident. Take just 1 second to support the channel by clicking the free subscribe button, because this is the story of how children from a small town mysteriously disappeared. September 17, 1984, started as an ordinary Monday at Millbrook Elementary School. The morning routine proceeded normally. Children filed into classrooms. Teachers took attendance. The first period began at 8:30 a.m. sharp, just as it had for the past 30 years. At 10:15 a.m. during morning recess, several teachers noticed something unusual. Groups of students stood motionless in the playground, staring at the sky. They weren't playing or talking, just staring at the sky that consisted of ordinary clouds. Patricia Henley, a third-grade teacher with 20 years of experience, approached her students standing in a circle near the swing sets, but none of them answered her. Their eyes remained fixed on the clouds, but there was nothing unusual about them. Before Henley could go any further, the recess bell rang. The strange behavior seemed to break. The students returned to normal and went back to the building, but several teachers noted that they seemed quieter than usual and more distant. The third period began at 10:45 a.m. That's when everything went out of control. Sarah Cortez was teaching 5th grade mathematics when she noticed movement in her peripheral vision. 3 students had gotten up from their desks without permission and were walking toward the classroom door. They ignored her. They moved in perfect synchronization. Their steps matched exactly. Their eyes focused on something beyond the door that only they could see. Cortez moved forward to stop them, but before she reached the door, 4 more students got up and started walking in the same direction. Then, 6 more. Then, the entire class. Sarah Cortez shouted, "Stop! Everyone sit down right now!" They walked past her as if she were invisible. Their faces showed no emotion. They simply walked. Cortez ran into the hallway. Children were emerging from every classroom, moving toward the main entrance in organized streams. They didn't run or push. They walked with purpose, their movements unnaturally coordinated. Teachers tried to stop them. 23 children walked past them, and the teachers followed them, calling out their names, trying to physically restrain them. But the children showed surprising strength. By 11:03 a.m., when the police arrived, all 23 children had disappeared into the forest. Sheriff James Whitmore mobilized every available resource within minutes. State police, volunteer fire departments, and local search and rescue teams descended on Millbrook. By noon, more than 100 people had begun searching Miller's Woods. The search should have been straightforward. 23 children moving together would leave obvious tracks, broken branches, disturbed ground. But researchers discovered something impossible. The children's footprints simply stopped 30 meters into the forest, as if they'd vanished mid-step. At 3:47 p.m., the first child was found. 8-year-old Emma Sullivan emerged from the forest 2 miles north, walking slowly, her eyes still glazed. She was immediately taken to Millbrook Medical Clinic. Over the next 3 hours, 10 more children appeared at various locations around the forest's edge. All showed similar symptoms: dilated pupils, disorientation, inability to respond to questions. None had visible injuries. None could explain where they had been. But 12 children remained missing as darkness fell. The search continued through the night with floodlights and thermal imaging equipment. Nothing was found. Dr. Richard Morrison treated the 11 recovered children. Their symptoms were consistent: severe hallucinations, temporal disorientation, inability to form new short-term memories. 10-year-old Marcus Chen pointed at empty air and insisted he could see the door made of light. Blood samples were drawn immediately. Dr. Morrison sent them to the state laboratory with an urgent request for toxicology screening. Preliminary results came back in just a few hours. All the children tested had a substance in their blood that was chemically very similar to LSD. However, the concentration levels were much higher than typical recreational doses, and the molecular structure showed subtle variations that lab technicians couldn't immediately identify. Dr. Morrison contacted the Centers for Disease Control. By the next morning, federal investigators were on their way to Millbrook. FBI agent Sandra Mitchell arrived in Millbrook on September 18th with a team of specialists. Her first action was to seal Millbrook Elementary and test every possible source of contamination. The school's water supply showed immediate positive results. Chemical analysis detected trace amounts of the same hallucinogenic compound found in the children's bloodstreams. The contamination appeared concentrated in water fountains on the second floor. All 23 affected children had drunk water during morning recess. But how did the compound enter the water system? The school's plumbing connected directly to Millbrook's municipal supply, which served the entire town. Yet no other residents reported symptoms. The contamination seemed targeted specifically to the school. Mitchell interrogated teachers, staff, and administrators. Principal Morrison provided visitor logs, maintenance records, and security footage. One detail emerged that troubled Mitchell. On the morning of September 14th, 3 days before the incident, a man identifying himself as a water quality inspector from the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation had visited the school. He had shown identification and spent approximately 40 minutes examining the school's plumbing. Principal Morrison remembered the visit clearly. The inspector had been professional and thorough and had left paperwork stating the water quality was within acceptable parameters. When Mitchell contacted the Vermont DEC, they had no record of sending an inspector to Millbrook Elementary. As days passed with no sign of the 12 missing children, the search evolved from a rescue operation into a recovery operation. The assumption shifted from rescue to body retrieval, but no bodies were found. Millbrook Woods was searched systematically, section by section. Caves were explored, ravines examined, streams were dragged. Cadaver dogs walked every trail. Nothing emerged. The families of the missing children lived in agonizing limbo. They couldn't bury their children because there were no bodies. They couldn't hope for their return because the circumstances suggested death. They simply waited with unanswered questions. The recovered children provided no useful information. Their memories of the incident were fragmented. Most described walking toward beautiful light and feeling pulled by something. Some insisted they had been somewhere else, a place they couldn't describe with words but insisted was more real than reality. Child psychiatrist Dr. Eleanor Price worked with them for weeks. When asked to illustrate what they had experienced through drawings and descriptions, she recorded disturbing patterns. All of them drew similar images, spiraling patterns, doorways made of light, and consistently, a symbol none of them could explain, something resembling an eye within a triangle. Dr. Price had seen similar images in research on hallucinogenic experiences, but the consistency among all of them was unusual. They had been separated during treatment and had no opportunity to coordinate their stories. During the third week of the investigation, Agent Mitchell received a classified report from the FBI's Chemical Analysis Division. The compound found in the children's bloodstreams wasn't just similar to LSD. It was a synthetic variant that appeared in classified documents from the 1960s. The compound had been developed as part of Project MKUltra, the CIA's notorious mind control research program that had officially ended in 1973. The specific variant found in Millbrook matched chemical signatures of substances tested on unwitting subjects during MKUltra's most controversial phase. Someone had used a compound from a disbanded intelligence program to poison children in a small town. Mitchell requested access to declassified MKUltra files. In 1967, the CIA conducted a project where it mixed hallucinogens into the air and tested them on an isolated community. The goal was to observe effects like mass hallucinations and signs of telepathic communication in altered states of consciousness. This experiment took place in Colorado. Details of a similar project in Oregon were largely kept secret, but the only leaked information was this. Subjects really did experience mass hallucinations, and some claimed they had made mental contact with each other while their minds were clouded. 23 children walking in perfect synchronization toward an unseen goal. Could the Millbrook incident be a repeat of that failed experiment? But what was the goal? Why target children? Where did the missing children go? Did they really get lost in the forest, or were they taken by someone? The woods where the children disappeared gained a dark reputation. Detailed searches revealed that within 50 miles of Millbrook, there were no industrial facilities. Nobody knew where the children had been taken or what ultimately happened to them. The Millbrook incident wasn't a tragedy. It was a planned experiment, and it worked far better than anyone expected. Take just 1 second to support us by subscribing for free to see more content like this.